All right. Well, I'd like to call to order the October 12th, 2023 meeting of the Community Media Committee. Will, you've got the roll? Got everyone there?
Yep, everyone is here.
Perfect. And then is there a motion to approve the minutes from our September 14th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Are there any additions, corrections, anything at all that people would like to see changed?
So you correctly noted that I was absent, except that I was really like 99.9% absent. I was there for like a nanosecond, logging in from a Starbucks in Fond du Lac, and I was getting cocky thinking, hey, I can handle this tech. I got this.
And
then it just didn't happen. So
that is a little cocky, Bill. I would have to say that, yeah, that's how would you like that reflected at all in the minutes?
Absolutely
what am I
not.
hearing? And
Absolutely
I hearing an amendment?
not.
Okay. Are there any amendments to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving as they are written?
Aye.
Okay, they are approved. Fantastic.
And who seconded?
I did.
Okay. So Anita, then Susan. Thank you. Okay.
Fantastic. All right. So I don't believe we have any appearances tonight, do we? I don't see any. All right. Then let's just move on to some of their ongoing business. So our newsletter, updates, and analytics. So between our last meeting, just a week or so after our last meeting, Amanda sent some really nice follow-up information about the analytics work that she was doing. And Amanda, I'm wondering, would you mind just sharing with everyone what you found?
Yes, I might be reviewing them for the first time since I sent them a month ago, so just bear with me. But so we did this last September where we looked at just kind of subscription rates, which is like the number of people subscribed to our newsletter, which sections are getting like the most activity, and then just any other things that kind of speak to me. Probably the biggest call out comparing last September with this September was that we had 853 subscribers last September, and we have 985 this year. So that's an increase of over 15%, and that's really awesome. In addition to the number of subscribers increasing, our engagement rate has also increased because we went from an average of 72% open rate last year to 75%. So that's a 3% increase with the 15% increase of subscribers. So that's really awesome. And then our click rate stayed flat from last year, which is about 20%. So that's still very good. Like compared to business analytics, like when I do email for work, these are like unbelievably good numbers. Our lowest open rates were January, July, and December. Oh, that's open rates and clicks. None of these are surprising because of the holidays and like peak summer months. The highest click links for the last 12 months was number one, the bus transit survey, which I don't think was surprising, but I thought that was cool. Number two is the input from the San Damiano meeting. Another top story was the development area. That was one of the top sections last year too. And then probably my favorite was that the opening of Fratelli's, which is part of the development section, had like a lot of clicks too. So people are excited about that, which I guess if you drive by there, it's pretty packed most nights. And then just a housekeeping item that we could do something about if we want is we have about 40 bounces per month, and that's about what we had last year too. So you can go into email tools and kind of clean that up to help with deliverability, but our rates are so good. I really don't think it's a big concern, but that's something I look at when I do email marketing for my job. So just something to be aware of. So that was pretty much the takeaway.
That's fantastic. If you don't mind, I would just like to make sure I've got my vocabulary terms correct. So you mentioned engagement, read rate. I thought you said read rate or open rate.
Open rate.
Open rate, but not read. There's nothing about,
Right.
it's just the open rate.
Yep.
So engagement, open rate, clicks, the number of clicks, the number of bounces.
Mhm.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, I would say open rate and click rate are probably the most standard and like apples to apples across like all email tools. I'm just using the word engagement, just like people are engaging with our email content because they're opening it and clicking it.
And our open rate, did you say it was increased by 20%? Is that what I understood?
3% from last year, so it went 72%
3%.
to
Okay.
75 was the average open rate over the rolling 12 months.
Okay. So it went from, so the open rate is the same as engagement, and it went from 73 to 75%.
72 to 75.
72 to 75.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying that in your work in corporate settings, that's like, it's an unbelievably high.
Yeah, I mean, if you get 20% in a work like a B2B setting, that's really good. So this is like really outstanding. People want to read it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay. Yeah, and I understand like we're getting some bounce backs, but it's only 40, you know? Mm.
Yeah, they're not bounce backs. It's just like the email address is no longer valid, or
Got it.
mailbox is full would be another reason. Bill, were you trying to ask a question?
Yeah, Amanda, I was just wondering, what do you attribute the increase in the number of subscriptions to? Was there some outreach to get more people to sign up, or what's going on with that?
I mean, I feel like we added some stuff to across the website. There was a few things changed, but I really couldn't say. I know when I moved to Monona 3.5 years ago, and somehow I came across the newsletter and subscribed right away when I moved here. So I don't know if it has to do with residents moving here or whatnot, but I really don't know.
So just maybe organic growth and word of mouth.
Yeah, maybe.
Great.
I feel like that's pretty much what it has to be, because we haven't really done anything different from the starting. We send it out. I'll post it on Facebook like the next day, and then I'll put it on the news flash area of the website the next day, which is right on the front. And that's about it. So it's definitely has to be somewhat word of mouth, or the fact that it's just sitting on the news flash area, which is right up the front panels, that people are saying, oh, instead of seeing it here, I want to get it in my email, you know? And I almost, I hesitate to put it on the news flash every time too, because I'm like, well, then why are people going to subscribe if every month it just gets put on the website, you know? But
Right.
but that's, you know, I get emails right away like, hey, can you get it up on the website? So
I think Will too, again, being on the Senior Citizens Foundation board, you know, again, a lot of them don't use a website or don't know how to get into that. But because they use the Monona website because of stick pickup and leaf pickup and things like that. So they are finding the newsletter. And actually, several people were talking about at the senior center the other day about several articles. One of them was an announcement about a meeting in McFarland about the lakes. And there were like 3 people there who had seen it on the newsletter, on the Monona newsletter, and there was nothing posted in McFarland. So again, you're reaching people, and we talk about it at the center. So for whatever that's worth, maybe what we do is we teach them how to get to the newsletter too.
That's a really good point, Susan.
Because they like to sit down, and a lot of the people, especially at bingo, aren't super, and there's a big group, aren't super comfortable with computers. And so we have iPads that we lend out. So we often hook them up and they just are amazed at what they can find, you know. So anyway, it's just reaching out.
Really good thought. Do you feel that some folks are? So for example, Susan, can you think of maybe what could be taught? Like, is it a matter of how to sign up, or is it a matter of like teaching people like how to open it once it arrives in
How
your
to open it.
inbox? How to open it?
It's
Okay.
taking them into the city website and finding it.
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
And one thing I think we could do is when they're coming in for an event, put a table down with a couple iPads on it and have it open to the newsletter. I know the senior center actually sends theirs out in paper. Part of it is the age group,
Hmm.
but I think if we can help show them that it's there and they can see the content and how
Yeah.
well done it is. I
You
mean,
know, that's a
there's
really good
different
point. And
ways.
just the concept of clicking a link within the digital newsletter, which then takes you to another location, and just that, instead of having just a flat paper newsletter, you've got this like 3-dimensional newsletter that
Right.
yeah.
They like it. Once we get them hooked up, they'll sit
Yeah.
down and look at it. So
Are you looking for someone from this committee to visit the seniors and step them through the process? I mean,
oh, that's Teresa, that is a great idea.
I'd be happy to do that.
So Diane does special, like special events, like the chiefs come down and
Yeah.
talk to the seniors and stuff. But again, I'll tell you, having somebody come
Yeah.
and especially,
To represent this
they seem,
committee? Absolutely.
and they're putting in a whole new video and things. So basically you can do like a program and just come in
Well,
at a certain time and talk
I
about
guess
it.
I guess
And
what I was thinking, so I work in IT and I do a lot of like helping people use technology. I would be happy just to say, here's how you go to the Monona website, here's how you find the newsletter. Once you get the newsletter, here's how to navigate the newsletter. Here are some of
yeah,
the things that, I mean, just to
yeah,
teach them like the IT aspect of it.
right.
I'd be happy to do that, because anything we can do to like make people more comfortable with the newsletter would be great. It's promotion.
I will send Diane an email and tell her
Yeah.
that we have people from the media group that
Mhm.
would be willing to
Per person.
so basically we do have in the past we've had a person where if you want IT help, you can come in and Dan Eckloff will help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was involved in that terrible fire in Monona and is still
Okay.
transitioning a little bit. So she's been using a different group, but this is different. This is
Yeah.
it's like a welcome bag.
Yeah.
How to
Yeah,
touch
because like you said, the seniors have a paper newsletter. And
Yeah.
so this is just understanding how to use this different kind of newsletter and how to keep in the loop in Monona. That'd be great. I
I
mean,
think that's great.
I'd be very careful, I wouldn't, be very careful not to overstep and, get into any areas that Will would be more of an expert. But do you think people know how to listen to WVMO? Do you think people would need to learn how to use the Monona Go app, or how to download an app to their phone?
That
How
also
to go to YouTube? I'd be
would
happy to do all that technology training. It was basically what I do for a living.
it may be a step beyond,
Okay,
but let me talk to Diane and
please,
see.
that'd be great.
Again, we'll get in touch
Yeah,
and see kind of where she sees a scope of interest that
Yeah.
would, I mean, it's as easy as
Yeah.
well, if you go to I think it's a St. Mary's Senior Day place over here on the east side of town, they play WVMO
ah,
at that. So maybe one of the things we do is play it
yeah,
when we're playing music. And
right.
maybe Diane's doing it right now. I'm just not aware.
Yeah,
But I'll talk to her and you have great ideas. I'm making notes here. So.
okay, I'm happy to do that. And the more people, so maybe there's a particular time where the seniors are just naturally like already there that I could just piggyback on so that people wouldn't have to make a special trip. And
Right.
it would be, just run through, how do you get sign up for the newsletter, open the newsletter, download Monona Go, listen, just using the tools like that. I mean, totally fine. Yeah.
I think
I'd
that's
love
great.
that. Okay. All right. So, was there anything else that folks, I know Bill had a question about, whether we had any sort of explanation for the increase in subscriptions, and Susan brought up some great ideas about maybe how people might not really know the logistics of it all or the IT end of it all. Anything else about the newsletter? Well, later, of course, we'll talk about the October newsletter and specifically the contents, but just in general, anything about analytics? Thanks, Amanda. That's really helpful. And it's just proud, to know about that. To Bill's point, I would like to talk later in the meeting about, maybe we should think about, and it's on the agenda, number 5D, like some promotional efforts for the newsletter. If you don't mind, I'm just going to jump to 5D since we're talking about the newsletter, since Susan sort of had a great segue into, how can we increase readership? It could just be simple as technology training. We talked in our last meeting that we wanted to get 1,000. We wanted to hit 1,000 as a goal. We're there. We're very close. Does anyone have any thoughts on what we might do to increase subscriptions?
I was just distracted for a minute. Are you talking about subscriptions to the newsletter?
Newsletter.
On Monona Go now?
But we can take them both at the same time. They're separate on the agenda,
Okay.
but we can take
But
them both at the
newsletter is
same
what you
time.
were asking about. Okay.
Yeah, go both of them at once. It's fine with me if you've got something on the Monona Go side.
Well, one question I have is, I don't think we're guarding the newsletter by any means, but like, how do we feel about people outside of Monona being on the newsletter? Is that just okay? Are we just trying to get Monona residents or McFarland, Eastside Madison?
know.
Or that might be.
Do we have any reason not to include? I never thought about that.
And I'm not saying maybe not to include them, but are we, like, what kind of is the goal of the growth? Is just to have 1,000 people like focusing on Monona or going further?
I think it would be a really good thing, but also helpful if there's some way, and you can't always do it with an email address, but if there's some way to distinguish who your Monona subscribers are and who your subscribers are from outside of Monona. And it's not that, we speak one way to residents and a different way to non-residents, but I mean, if the numbers for the newsletter went up to 2,000, I kind of want to know where the people were from. But I don't know if that's possible, or if you ask for that information when people fill out a subscription form.
Well, and I think Bill's thoughts are really good. Here's the reminder, and I know Katie's on the phone and I'm sure has great ideas because this is her huge field of talent. But remembering that the school district is Monona and Cottage Grove. And so that's a whole area. And we have lots of friends who are looking to see, like, Fall Festival. They want to come in and bring because these kids all go to school together, and some kids know about it and they say, it's kind of like when they do the Fireman's Festival out in Cottage Grove. They're just events and things that are in that newsletter that are relevant to more than just our community, particularly Park and Rec. The concerts.
Susan, there was a similar conversation going on in the Monona neighborhood Facebook group. There was an events calendar and they put out a survey and it just opened the question up, should this be just for Monona events or for area events?
Got it.
And the consensus seemed to be, look, people don't like drive halfway up Monona Drive and then stop and turn around. If there's something going on across the border, then, let's park and grab the kids and go do it. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, that these things are of interest, not just in our city
Right.
limits.
Yeah, Bill, sometimes people don't even know when they're in Monona. They could be in Madison. You just don't know when the two come to. Have any of you listened to some of Bill's shows on VMO? They're fantastic. And one of them was all about the boundaries and borders and how they're not always what you think they are.
Yeah, I got people doing U-turns in the middle of Monona Drive now when they listen to that.
Katie had her hand up. Oh, and Will has his hand up too. I didn't see that. Go ahead, Katie.
Well, I just wanted to circle back to Amanda's point really quickly about like the purpose of the increase in subscribers and making sure that they're quality subscribers, right? Because like I actually hear maybe a different sort of newsletter. Maybe we have because tourism and things to be doing in the city and school events and park and rec, those are all great, but they're not why I initially wanted to have the newsletter in my inbox anyway, right? Like I'd like to have a news that's like specific to being a city resident in there. So, but maybe there's room for, and I guess I worry that if we had all of those in one newsletter, I would worry a little bit about like, then we're going to get a lesser quality subscriber, which is just going to drive our numbers down in the long run, right? Like it just would be like, people would be like, oh, I don't live there, so I don't need to know about the property taxes, or I don't need to know about the bus routes survey or when leaf pickup is, but I want this one thing about Parks and Rec. Well, I'll just find the Parks and Rec website. I think people would find a way around it. So if we're not providing like the information that the people that we'd be going after for subscriptions, if we're going after them, we have to provide the quality content that they're looking for specifically. And then, so just maybe just like doing cross sections of what newsletters would do what, and have, hey, here's the city resident newsletter. Here's Parks and Rec tourism newsletter. I don't know. I also don't know that I would actually advocate for multiple newsletters, but
right.
I also hear that like we're an island within the city, so it's not like you don't necessarily stop or know that you're in Monona. So I don't know, it's complicated. I just don't want us to get to the point where like we start dropping subscribers, we go up to 1,200 and then all of a sudden we're back down to 8 because people weren't getting the content that they actually wanted.
So really good point. Let's not just shoot for 1,000 just for the sake of shooting for 1,000. Because otherwise I think what you're saying is your open rate is going to possibly fall, right? Or your
subscribers, right? Like people will just unsubscribe at that point.
Yeah,
we have done, I think there have been some events that have come through that are like, remember like is it the Goodwin Community Center? Is that what it is? There was something there. There's been a few times where things have kind of trickled through that are not in Monona. Just calling that out to say it.
do we just kind of take, I'm sorry, Will, you had a question or
I don't know. I don't. I mean,
sorry.
I'll let you guys go. I don't have any input. Nope.
I was about to say, do we just sort of maybe take a field of dreams attitude? If you build it, they will come. Let's just focus on creating a really good newsletter and people will naturally sign up for it. Instead of like pushing to get a certain number of subscribers. Maybe that's all we need to do.
And then maybe the answer to Amanda's initial question, do we want people from outside to subscribe or not, is sure, if they want to know what's going on in Monona.
Yeah, if they
We're
want
not
to,
gonna,
yeah.
like tailor the content to a broader audience.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't. Are you suggesting we change our content in order to draw in those people, or are you
No,
suggesting
it's
that
the
we don't
opposite.
turn away? Yeah,
It's the
okay.
opposite.
Yeah, we do what we do. We make it about Monona, and if other people want to hear about it, let them sign up.
Right, but I
Okay.
also hear what Katie is saying, that if you do invite people to sign up for the Monona newsletter and then they figure out, oh, I signed up for something that has nothing of any interest to me in Cottage Grove, then yeah, maybe you will lose some of those.
Yeah.
I don't know, is it
but I think if it's
to let them kind of press their face up against the glass and look in and see if they like it? And
no, I don't think so. I think if it's organic, like what we're sort of leaning towards now, that's fine. And people will be, I mean, you might get people who who grew up here and are like, oh, I kind of just want to like keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening in the city, even though I don't live there, or
Mhm.
just want to know. Then you're not sort of saying, here, we have information and content for you, and then actually bait and switch. No, we don't. This isn't actually for you. This is for people who live here. If people are seeking us out and finding it and want that content, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
I don't think that will hurt us at all.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, I also wasn't saying we shouldn't include events that are outside of Monona. I do think, I mean, people in Monona would want to go to those. I think I agree with what Teresa's saying. We focus on just providing a really good newsletter for the people who live here, and then our rates will continue to go up. I almost hesitate to bring this up again too, but I wonder if sort of rebranding the newsletter and like giving it a better cachet within the city, because you know, it's sort of like the Monona Go app and that whole conversation that we've had about if people don't know about it, they can't subscribe to it. So I'm thinking about like, oh, do we have something up in the library? Do we have like, where do we talk about it? But I don't even know. I mean, I know it's called like the My Monona newsletter, but I guess I don't know that like we do a good job of even marketing ourselves as the newsletter to our own, you know, to people who do live here. I'm just not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't know if we have, if we want to get into that.
No, it's good. So
The
just,
library makes sense to
Yeah,
just have
totally.
a poster, you know.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
I mean,
they-
that's one of the few places that I actually look at their like paper flyer bulletin board. I skip a lot of those now, but that's when I tend to look at that because they don't allow everybody to just put something out.
Yes, thank you. Good point. I should put one up for the Monona Go app that has the QR codes on there.
do we have a poster that's ready to print about the newsletter, or can we enlist maybe Lois to throw something together? Didn't you do the graphics for the Monona Go, or am I thinking of someone else?
I did an Instagram post for the Monona Go.
Instagram post, that's right.
Yeah, but I
that's
can definitely
right.
do that for newsletter stuff.
So the newsletter, maybe putting a graphic together and working with Will to come up with the text, or working with someone else on this committee to come up with the text. And then yeah. And then we would want to put it like on our social media, like the city's social media, the city's Facebook page. Is that what
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think first off, right, go with the 8.5 by 11 layout that is for a regular flyer, if you will, that we stick up at the library.
Okay.
And that certainly can be translated into all sorts of digital mediums after that.
A question about it though. Do you want it to be like branded similarly to Monona Go app? Because I know we use some certain fonts and like kind of made a style for Monona Go. Do we want to keep a similar thing or make it its own separate thing?
I'm not a fan of the Times New Roman that we got going currently, but you know, I'd be open to some consistency on fonts.
Okay.
But Katie, what are your thoughts? You're the professional now when it comes to that stuff. I mean, in the very least, we should be consistent on fonts, right? I mean,
The font of the newsletter is Georgia. Sorry to jump in, but just adding that.
that's serif. Yeah. Is it consistent? I'm just even thinking like, is it even consistent with the fonts that are used on the city's website, which is sort of an old fashioned looking font out there? It could use an update.
Probably not.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm almost sure it's not. No.
Yeah. Perhaps Lois could look and get an idea of what might bring things together, what might match.
I can definitely do that.
Yeah.
So Teresa, can we go back to the newsletter promotion for just a second? I
Sure.
have a question, and I'm not making this as a suggestion because I don't really know. I'd like kind of Amanda and Katie to give me like an e-marketing perspective on whether this is a good practice or a terrible practice. But what the newspaper does, the Herald, Thistle, or will a couple times a year send every mailbox in the community a free copy of the paper as their subscription drive. And then I don't know what kind of results they get if anybody subscribes because of that. But if the city had email addresses for every resident, would it theoretically be possible? And again, I'm not suggesting this because I don't want to spam the world if this is a bad thing to do. But would that be possible? And is that ever done as a way of, like send one issue of the newsletter to everybody in the community if you had their emails, and then make some really conspicuous action button or something that if you want to subscribe and get this every month, here's how to do it.
I guess I'd want to know where the emails came from. So if it's like, oh, you agree to get your water bill through email or something, then you probably somewhere in there agree to receive information from the city. And so probably once it would be okay. I don't know that it would be spam, and certainly the city wouldn't be selling our information, but it kind of depends on that, how the sign up works, I guess I would say, is whether or not it's and I guess there's probably a business ethical versus a community ethical there. What might be okay for a for-profit to do versus what the city might feel comfortable with in terms of sharing that information, and what people thought they were agreeing to when they provided it.
Well, maybe the other thing is maybe we start with a little simpler idea, and maybe because effectively we don't print it. Maybe, and what we're talking about now is printing it and mailing it. Maybe we start with a simpler idea in relation to exposure, and we print a few and put them like at City Hall, in the senior center and the library, and just see if people take them and make it very clear in the newsletter that it's electronic and this is how you go into it. And then look a week later and see how many are still there. Because if you put 10 out and 10 are gone, then people are interested in it. And then we have to get them to take the step from the paper to the electronic, which is the same thing we have to do with the mailing.
Yeah. Susan, I'm envisioning like the poster could have like a little screenshot of like the newsletter on the poster instead of printing the whole newsletter.
I agree.
Yeah.
But there may be
the newsletter looks like, yeah.
But there may be times, like for instance, when the tax bill comes out, quite a few people are voting, making sure that we're using some type of communication, whether it's a poster or a sample newsletter, in places where, particularly like voting, the community is going to be there. Look for a particular event.
Yeah, like tabling, like maybe community media could have a table at some community event, you mean, like the 4th of July fest or things like that, you mean?
That's like Christmas in July. I mean,
yeah.
But again, with the voting there at those sites, people are in there, and maybe what you have is you have a poster up, but you might have a couple sample posters that explain how to get in, and maybe people just pick the poster up and take it with them to figure it out, and then you wouldn't have to print the whole newsletter.
Do
we have posters hung up in like Muska Lounge, Crema Cafe, Ken's? Because that's where my mind kind of goes, is like, just scattering, because like I know they all have posters.
No, I
I
mean,
love
that's,
that idea. I
it's a
love
great
that
idea. Like, I've never, shame on me, I never thought of the paper version of the digital flyer of like posting
Yeah.
things on the old school
Isn't
board,
that funny how we just, yeah. No, a poster, yeah, at Muskellunge, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we could write that whole Monona Drive. We could just print off 50 of those things. And they don't have to be fancy, just enough to get people's attention, like you see right at the shopping at the grocery store where there's a gazillion right when you walk out the door. And
Does
Put it up
True
in
Coffee
Ken's,
have a bulletin board?
Ken's window.
yeah,
What did you say, Bill?
Does True Coffee have a bulletin
Yep,
board?
it does. Yeah.
That'd be another good one, because a lot of
Yeah.
people are standing, waiting, and
Why
trying
don't
to
we,
make eye contact
yeah,
with everybody.
why don't we, maybe the next time we meet, we can, I mean, for now, maybe just get the poster created and then we talk about like distribution next, but so Lois is just gonna take a stab at it. What I'm hearing, do we want the one poster to also have like a picture of the Monona Go app as well as a picture of the newsletter? Do we want to like hit two at once?
I mean, I think so. It'd be like connect with Monona kind of.
Monona, yeah.
Why not? Sure.
Why not? Because I know that in the past we've had like a little picture of of a cell phone with the Monona Go app. We could do that. And maybe like the article that Amanda talked about getting so many clicks, like the bus survey or the San Damiano, maybe that could be the screenshot of a very popular story that ran or screen, with the header. I mean, ideally, if we're going to do some branding, if the header is ultimately going to use a different font, maybe we would get that new font squared away before we made the poster so that we had sort of a really nice and professional, consistent brand, a little bit closer to branding. Probably not ideal, but getting there. Yeah. So Lois, what do you think? Do you think like you come up with like 3 different layouts and bring them to the next meeting, or is that too much to ask?
I can definitely do that. Do you want me to send them to you and Will before I show them off, and so we can like go over wording a little bit and then bring them to the whole group?
Sure.
Okay, I can do that.
I mean, we're probably not going to edit too heavily anyway, but yeah, just Katie.
I just have one more question. Lois, are you in DECA by any chance, or are you in any of the like marketing classes that Mr. Ripple teaches?
I'm not. I was in his practical law class last year, but I have like massively reduced all my extracurriculars this year.
Okay, I'm just curious. Those classes, DECA and the marketing business ed classes, are offering some services to pretty much any business that's around for sort of something similar to what the community media department did last year with videos like featuring businesses and things. They have to learn how to write like business plans and marketing plans. And I'm just wondering if before Lois gets too far, we might ask them. I can either talk to David, the teacher, or I might even still have a sheet of paper that he shared with me on like all the things that they're trying to do and things that they're trying to learn through real world experience, and see if this might be like a branding-ish, marketing-ish campaign for media in Monona might be something that they could work on. And it's kind of a like take it or leave it. They'll do whatever if no commitment if you don't like what they pull together. So unless we think it's urgent to start, and that's totally fine. If we want to just like keep pushing forward, I can check with David and see if this is something that his students would be interested in, and then loop back Lois. I'm not trying to keep you out of it. I definitely want your participation of just like loop back around and see what you could do maybe with some of the things that they pulled together too.
Well, what do you think of that, Will? What do you think of that idea? Like letting the students sort of like make this part of a project to like jazz up and, update and modernize the newsletter look and feel and, brand it a little bit more.
Yeah, no,
consistent.
that's totally fine. I assume me or someone will have to give them talking points, verbiage, bullet points of like, here, I mean, our message for this is, we'll
Yeah,
want
it include when I talked to, the last time I talked to him about what they were trying to do for other businesses, it included like a 30-minute meeting with the business to sort of understand what you as a business owner needed or wanted or were trying to accomplish, and then they would go do their thing and then bring you back a plan.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I mean, I'm fine with Lois doing whatever she wants. Any help
Yeah.
people want to give, let's do it.
Yeah, and I guess I was thinking of it as
Especially
more
we
of
can
like
say thanks, but no thanks.
all the different pieces of media, right? So like the radio station and the newsletter and all the different pieces, the app, YouTube, all those things that maybe they could find something to finally unify all those things. And like you said, Teresa, we are all over the place as a city with like fonts and styles, and I think they have the logo and I don't know, Amanda, I can't tell what the font on the website is. They definitely have like a header and a
Yeah.
complimentary font for the content, but I can't really
Yeah.
tell what it is.
Yeah, it looks kind of outdated.
Yeah,
The
we're up
header
for
font is for sure.
we're up
One
for
thing-
a website update as well, and I don't know how quick that's going to happen, but we are
Yeah,
for an update. So I'd say within the next year, we'll probably start that process.
yeah. Well, should we check in with Neil before we get too far down the road about that exact thing? Like, is a general city website update already on the agenda, on the calendar?
No, it's that we've had it for 4 years now. And
On
so
the to-do list.
our free upgrade with the company we're with is now
Oh.
in effect. And therefore, whenever we are ready, we can work with them and do the upgrade. But I can pretty
Got
much
it.
guarantee between the operational referendum, the
Yeah.
salary assessments, the this, that, and the other thing, that's like
Right.
fifth on the list of the big things that Monona needs to worry about right now.
Right, no, I hear you. It would be nice though, just to give the newsletter, a facelift, just to freshen it up, use modern fonts, make it consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
One
fine
thing,
with that.
I'm
for
actually
sure.
wearing like my VMO t-shirt. I mean, this feels to me like I see this all over the place. I wouldn't want to mess with this font that we've already got on VMO though.
No.
So I wouldn't want to
No,
mess with that.
I think we'd get a lot of pushback from the
Yeah.
local people,
We can't do
so,
that. So
um,
whatever we do, we would have to bring the newsletter so that it more matches on VMO. Is that kind of what you're like the look of it, or?
I don't know. I mean, Monona Go
Has its
on
own.
the app itself is mimicking the logo of the city.
Okay.
And then, any flyers, things that I created were different than what Lois created.
Right.
And I like Lois's better. I wish I'd have had that
Yeah.
at first because that was awesome.
We should probably think about having a style sheet so that whatever we put out is consistent and.
Well, there is, so
professional.
when that communications assessment that
That Maggie
Maggie
put
Baum
together,
did, I
yeah.
believe there is something in there. So if we
Yeah.
wanted to stick with that, we could do that. I
Okay.
also think that, and I don't think we should get bogged down with this, but I think we probably should do our diligence and run it by the mayor before we launch it out.
Absolutely.
Since she was definitely the one who said, hey, we need to do something to so let's really get this newsletter going. So I think she'll probably have her own opinions about what she thinks about that as well.
Yep.
So a quick thing.
It's hard to do, to answer the WVMO thing. That's hard to do because the Avenir text or font that WVMO uses is not common. So you got to like go download it, and that's fine. You can do that, but it's not real common.
Right.
default text in programs.
One thing I like doing is I like that all the things have actually different fonts for their like headers, that WVMO is different from Monona Go because it creates that uniqueness that we can like match colors then. But the thing I would more prefer to see is actually a matching of like the lower text, and WVMO, like that's like whatever your font you're using there is great and we could take that font. But I don't mind having different logos with similar colors for the headers, and obviously Monona's all got similar colors, so that's fine if it's just like the classic blue and white.
Well-
I appreciate having that design aesthetic perspective on this because yeah, I think that's a really good point. I personally am not bothered by different fonts for different products,
Yeah.
but I see, Teresa, that you want to have kind of a unified
I don't know. Yeah.
something about it.
Just something that visually, when people see it, they recognize like, oh, it's a family. It's
Yeah.
all connected. You know, there's
I mean,
something
can it be
similar
that
about
our,
it.
maybe our seagull is a element of every one of those logos, and then maybe there's a different font for each product, or I'm sorry, is the seagull funny?
Limitless.
We need
Limitless
a stork.
opportunity.
And then the stork is carrying all of
Flamingo.
the, is carrying Monona Go and WVMO and the newsletter.
Well, I'm
Good.
looking forward to seeing whatever Lois comes up with, but
Absolutely.
before she does, am I understanding correctly that let's allow Katie to check in with some resources that may be at the high school just to see what's possible there?
Yeah, or if Lois is excited, and I don't think, why not have
Yeah,
5 different samples and 3 of them are from the class and 2 of them are from Lois or whatever.
Sure. Because it could be a great little, you know, a project or a capstone or whatever you call it, you know, for the students. All right, excellent.
Yeah. Sorry. I can definitely start putzing and then we'll see what happens with the high school and everything.
So the purpose of all of this is just to make people more aware of the communication vehicles that exist in Monona for keeping up with Monona news. And while we're at it, let's take the opportunity to clean it up a little bit, make it refreshed and unified and a little more like a brand. Okay. If I didn't get that right, let me know. And this goes for both Monona Go and the newsletter. So we're kind of doing it both at one time. Okay, now it's 5:50 and we want to get out of here by, what time did we start? 5? We don't want to go over an hour. So a quick little, I wish Joe were here. I was hoping we could take some time to share feedback about a new program on WVMO and on the school media. I don't know what we call it. Community media.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, it's on Monona Community Media YouTube
Monona
channel.
Community Media, which is the bilingual Conectados program. And I wonder if you've seen it, if you've heard people talking about it, wondering if you have thoughts or feedback, anything to share about that. It's just like with anything, when something's new, you do it for a little while and then you stop and evaluate, see how it's coming along, what works, what doesn't work. And if we need to make changes, we make changes. Anybody?
I did hear one of the broadcasts just kind of in commuting, so for a few minutes in the car, and I don't think I got the entire program or all the segments of it, but I thought it was really well produced and it moved along well. And you know, to do something that's difficult to do in broadcast programming, which is something bilingual,
Yeah.
you know, I think they figured out how to do that so that a person, whatever their first language is able to keep up with the content and stay engaged with what the message is. So I thought it was good.
And Bill, that was the VMO that was on the
Yeah.
radio? Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a radio and there's also like a TV program. Yeah.
Right, and Will, is that two different productions, or are they taking the TV content and just using the audio only for radio? Just
Correct.
edited in a different length. Yeah.
Yep, correct. So we're doing the TV program in the high school studio. And the last one, we had Spanish classes coming in with their teachers. So that was cool. And then she's taking that audio home, making the edits, and giving it to Joe to put on WVMO. And then Brennan makes some edits to the recorded version as far as adding in the music and things to finish out the show, and graphics, lower thirds for names and things. But I agree, it's a very ambitious idea to try to do a bilingual program broadcast. And it's essentially what with new age broadcast, digital, online. Yeah, very advantageous, or very aggressive, if you will, or whatever the last word I used was better. And she's doing a very good job. I agree.
Ambitious, I think, was how you put it, right?
Yeah, I agree with that word choice. Has anyone else seen the show or listened to it on VMO? Heard people talking about it? Feedback? No. The
I know
question.
Joe did get some feedback that
What's
he
that?
shared with me. Joe did get some feedback
Oh, yeah,
that he shared
right.
with
I
me
wish you were
that
here.
he
Yeah.
was at his daughter's tennis match, and somehow Conectados came up. I think he was talking to somebody, and then some of the teenagers that were next to him were like, "Oh, that's so cool. We didn't know about that, or we knew about it. It's so cool." And then some mother goes, "Oh, you work for Shalana on the show?" So he kind of laughed at that and emailed her and was like, "I guess you're already my boss or something." So
That's hilarious.
but there's people who certainly in the MG community, I think, who have heard about it and enjoy it.
Yeah. Please do take a moment to watch it on Monona Go or listen to it on VMO. When does it air on VMO, Will?
November 17th will be the next one on VMO, but we have 2, I think, already done. I think she's done 2 or 3 already that are either on YouTube or the Monona Go app.
Yeah, I've seen 2 that are on Monona Go.
Yeah.
The first I got a little choked up. It was an interview with Jade Fee, who works for the district doing a lot of Spanish translation.
Oh, yes.
For families, and Jade started to get a little emotional when she was talking about, how the families have sacrificed a lot to be here and how they often feel uncomfortable voicing any sort of, they don't want to ask questions. If they don't understand what's going on, they feel embarrassed to ask questions because they don't want to be a bother. They don't want to, impose on anyone. And I thought she told it in a way that was very touching. And I started to imagine myself, in their shoes. And it's very difficult. At the end of the day, I just want to make sure that we do this right. Bringing bilingual programming to a community has never been done before. And sometimes if it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. We want it to be sustainable. We don't want to shoot out the starting blocks with all energy and then lose steam and then need to pull back later. We want to make sure that we're creating something that is not too labor or resource intensive and it's sustainable. So, and we want to create something that's not dependent on just one person, that, there's support in place if needed. So, anyway, would love to hear your feedback on that. I've heard good things about it so far. I do think it's ambitious. I have to say, I do have a concern that there might be some burnout.
It's once a month, is that correct? Right now, Will? Okay.
Yep.
I think that's probably a wise way to get started at
To
least.
ease in.
Trying to do it weekly would be really
Yeah,
demanding.
the once a month frequency, I think, is good. Watching the show, the format of the show seems like they're just really trying to pack a lot of information into a short amount of time. And I don't know, I'm just curious, do we extend the time or do we cut the content, just so that it's a little more of a relaxed, so it doesn't require so much work to produce one show. But I love it. It's fantastic. All right. Looking at the agenda then, we've got no new business. How is that possible? I'm all right with that. Go on to reports. Willow, is there anything you wanted to say?
I don't think I have anything specific. We talked about Conectados. I thought it was cool that the Spanish classes came in.
Mm-hmm.
We are the capital budget we did put for that streaming infrastructure, that was like $14,000. We are looking at an alternative solution that could be cheaper. It would be a subscription, just like everything else, a cloud subscription every year. But
That's how they get you.
over a 10-year time frame, we'd still pay less than,
Yeah.
roughly. So and it might even be more and then hopefully we would keep up with the technology to where we wouldn't have to spend another 14,000 in 8 years like we're doing now, or that we potentially would be doing now. So we're looking into that, and that could be helpful for us.
Can you say that
Yeah,
again? So you're looking into a cloud-based alternative for the streaming something?
For that whole, pretty much replacing all that equipment with the cloud, a cloud subscription. We'd have to upgrade some equipment to work with the cloud, but it would not be a full $14,000, and then it would be a minimal like $1,500 subscription each year.
So basically, so am I understanding you correctly that the streaming solution that was laid out in the capital budget, this is an alternative to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Katie, did you have a question?
I have a question about something different. So if we're moving on to something else, then I would be happy to do that. But otherwise, I don't want to interrupt this conversation.
Okay. Will, anything else from you, Will, with the community report?
Other than, we are doing the Silver Edition with the AV Club, which is another program we record in the studio, and that's we just did Diane Micklebank from the Senior Center, so that should go out at some point here. I got to talk to Brennan, and coming up is Officer Luke Wunsch. So that'll be the next one, and we try to get those to get cut up and put on the VMO show as well. The students do those interviews, so those are always fun. And then we have the new club members doing a lot of the production work, and that's how they learn, the ones that can't make it to events and stuff. And that's pretty much all I got for now out of the being mindful of the time.
All right, Katie, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just realized the time it was too. I wondered maybe for next month, Teresa, if there's an opportunity for an update on the city's plan to go to referendum, and looking ahead what the city might need in terms of communication support and what that might mean for this committee.
Yep, I completely agree. It's a slower moving process, I think, than everyone hopes, is what's basically happening.
Yeah.
So Katie, you're talking about communications related to the referendum or general communications in all ways?
What the referendum communications might mean for this committee, if anything, and maybe not.
Okay.
Maybe it'll be stacked out only, but just a question on looking ahead.
I do know that the city will be contracting with a company for communications on that, but I'm happy to provide an update. to this committee next time we meet.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Amanda, I'm sorry, Anita, anything you want to say about the newsletter? I know the deadline's coming up.
No, nothing to report really.
Okay.
People usually turn things in at the last minute or later, so.
Okay.
Not much in yet. Oh, Will and Amanda, I'm out of town this weekend. I'll put a draft together tomorrow night, but things always trickle in over the weekend, so I'll just forward the emails to you
Yeah.
to add to the draft, so.
And
Okay.
then, I would love to be able to proofread. Last time there were just some typos and some grammar errors that always like, I don't know what that is. It just gets when I see that. So like, don't want that going out. All right. Is there, would take us to adjournment? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second?
I second.
I need a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. I wish there were a beer garden that we could rush to.